Okay, I hope you're ready for maybe the strangest, craziest, weirdest argument of all time, especially the way that in which I am going to present it, because, yeah. So, the third way, given by Thomas Aquinas, is, it's a bit of a doozy. So you have kind of the abstracted philosophical way in which to understand this, in which case I think it's a very profound argument that really has not been dealt with properly, at least not that I've seen. And then you have the, Chris is going to take this and turn it into a really easy and weird argument to understand. In modern language, what is he talking about? Sort of explanation. So I'm going to follow that one primarily because other people can deal with the abstracted philosophical language. So let's walk through this argument, and maybe I will try and make something that looks insane on the surface make a little bit more sense and be a little less insane. All right, starting at point number one, the universe contains beings that are not necessary but merely possible. What? What do you mean? Necessary and possible? Well, if you've seen the presentation I did on the ontological argument, you'll know the difference between necessary beings and possible beings. So here's what that means. Possible or contingent beings would be things that exist or things that might or might not exist depending upon something else. So if your existence is dependent upon something else, then that thing would be necessary for your existence. A little more complicated than that, but you get the idea. So a necessary thing would be the thing by which all other things find their meaning and can exist, sort of. So I hope that makes sense. It's kind of confusing, again, outside of the philosophical context, but just understand it as there are things that are necessary and things that are contingent upon necessary things. All right, let's go to point two. With an infinite amount of time, there would become the necessity that no merely possible being or beings would exist. AKA, in an infinite amount of time, all possibilities would be realized. What? Let's go to point number three. Thus, since nothing would exist, there would always thereafter be nothing, for nothing cannot create anything. Okay, I get that point. So if nothing ever existed, then nothing ever will exist. Still stuck on that second point. That's weird. Let's go to point four. But something currently exists, and thus there could not have been an infinite amount of time in the past, and therefore God exists. Okay. Let's just kind of wash that clean and change it out a little bit. So let's ask this question instead. Let's talk about the universe itself, or all of reality itself. The universe, all of reality, space and time, all of it, start to finish. Does that have to exist? Like, could it stop existing at some point? I mean, is it possible for the universe itself to stop existing? Now, you may talk about a multiverse or whatever else. All right, fine, the multiverse. Anything, whatever is real, here and now, could it stop existing? Well, that's an awkward question, because if you are a theist, if you believe that God created everything, then you would say, well, yes, if he says so. Or, if he doesn't say so, then no. It can't stop existing because he makes it exist. Okay, so I guess, that's fine. But what about if you're an atheist? What if you don't believe in a God? Can the universe stop existing? Well, the law of conservation of mass and energy seems to indicate that, no, it can't stop existing. You can't just have matter and space stop existing, and that would be true, so long as you first have a universe. In other words, that law of physics is only true as long as you have laws of physics. Like, that law doesn't create that own law. It doesn't say the universe itself has to exist. It doesn't have to exist at all. It could just simply not exist at one point, or at all points. It doesn't have to exist. That law doesn't apply to the universe itself. It only applies once there is a universe. So the prior condition for the law of conservation of mass and energy, or any laws of physics, the prior condition would have to be there is the universe. And then those laws work. So no, that law actually doesn't force the universe to exist. Does anything force the universe to exist? All of the universes, if there's multiple, or anything like that? Well, the atheist would have to either say no or I don't know. Those would be really only two options. Because if you say yes, could the universe force itself to exist? Because wouldn't it have to be greater than itself in order to force its own existence? But that doesn't make any sense at all. How can it be greater than itself? That's stupid. Okay, so no, it can't force itself to exist. I can't believe in a God or anything greater to force it to exist, so no. I guess it technically doesn't have to exist. It could stop existing. I mean, there's no powerful thing, there's nothing powerful enough to force it to. So I guess no, it doesn't have to exist. In which case, the universe would actually be a contingent being. It wouldn't be necessary at all. The interesting thing about contingent beings is if they're not necessary, then they don't have to exist. So at some point, it could just stop existing. At any point in time. If nothing forces it to exist, then the universe could just stop existing at some point in the future. Right? Okay, well, if there's infinite past, though, if it's infinitely been here in the past, then wouldn't all possible realities have been realized? That's weird. What does that mean? Well, think about it this way. So if I flip a coin, what's the chance it's going to land heads? Theoretically 50-50, unless I've rigged the game, right? Or what's the chance that it flips and lands heads, and I flip it again and it lands heads again? Less than 50, like 25, right? What if I flip it 100 times? What's the chance it lands heads 100 times in a row? Not good. Right. What if I flip it an infinite number of times? Will it ever land heads up 100 times in a row? Yeah, it's infinite tries, of course. With the infinite tries, all possible solutions will happen. Now, it'll never flip a coin and turn into a car, because that's not possible. But all possible things will come to pass with infinite time, or infinite tries. Okay? So if the universe has already existed for an infinite amount of time, and the universe could just stop existing at any point in time, then that's a possibility. In which case, that possibility would have already come to pass in the infinite past before us. In which case, there would be no universe, no nothing, time stops, it ends, game's over. And we would never be here. And the universe would not be here today. Because the universe would be a contingent being, or contingent thing. The funny thing about contingent things is that they always rely upon a necessary thing. That's why they're contingent. So if there's nothing that forces the universe to exist, then something, well, that doesn't make any sense, because then the universe would have stopped existing already. So actually the only answer to it would be the universe relies upon God's existence and will to force it to infinitely exist, which means you have to have an infinitely powerful being. That would be God. Kind of a mind bender, isn't it? It's a really strange argument. It's not strange in philosophical circles because, again, the idea of contingence and necessary is well established, and it's not a really confusing thing in an abstract sense. But for the average Joe, if you will, it's a little bit more mind-bending, it's a little more confusing, but suffice it to say this. If you say the universe is forced to exist, you've said God exists. If you say the universe is not forced to exist, then my question is, in an infinite past, which you need as an atheist, why didn't it stop existing? If you say anything to the effect of, oh, well, because it can't stop existing, well, then you just denied the whole point of there's no God. Like, you're stuck with either the universe was created by God or is sustained infinitely by a God, or the universe is created or sustained infinitely by God. You really have no other choice because it's a contingent being by definition. All right. Sorry about melting your brains on this one. This one's a little complex. It's a fun one, though. It's really fun. What's not fun is trying to explain this over and over again when people aren't quite getting it, and that's okay. It takes a little bit of time to seep in, but it is a really fun argument once you start tracking with it. And it's think about it a little bit more. Maybe rewatch some of this if you need to, and leave some comments below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you got any counter arguments to this, any good rebuttals, anything that you think needs to be explored more. I'd be happy to do it. All right, have a good one. Talk to you later.